What is up, everyone? JD here. Hope you're doing well today. Today I'm really excited to bring you my full review for my very first handling of a Microtech Ultratech. Let's get into it. Today, we're going to be going through specs for the Ultratech. We're going to be doing some size comparisons to help you with a frame of reference for the size of the knife, and then we'll jump into my thoughts and impressions. So this Microtech Ultratech is a special edition Blade Show 2022. It has a 3.35-inch M390 blade, 5-inch aluminum handles for an overall length of 8.35 inches. Claimed weight on the website is 3.5 ounces. Let's go ahead and throw it on the scale real quick. Are you going to zero out? There we go. So coming in at 3.4 ounces, coming in a little bit lighter than the claimed weight. Let's throw this down back on the table and run through some quick size comparisons to help you frame of reference the size of this knife. First, we're going to bring out a Demco AD 20.5, and actually we will go from the heel of the blade, not including the glass breaker, and we'll go ahead and bring out the Spyderco Shaman, doing the same thing. So as you can see, it's kind of in between when you don't include the glass breaker, and I think I may be a little close there. A little bit longer than the Demco AD 20.5, a little bit smaller than the Shaman, and definitely more slender than both. Let me go ahead and move the Demco out of the way, and we will bring out the Bug Out. And as you can see, it is a little bit longer than the Bug Out, and I will move the Shaman out of the way, and we will bring out the SIG K320 made by Hogue. This one's a little bit more of a challenge because it has a slightly slanted heel, and I pushed it way too far. I was trying to inch it up, but it was like not stopping on something on the table. So as you can see, just a little bit longer, not too much longer. I feel like I'm a little off there, but it's really hard to tell. But I think this is good enough, right? It's helping you frame of reference for the size of the Ultratech. Let's go ahead and bring out a couple of budget knives for my budgety friends out there. And here is the button lock Elementum 2 button lock, not the button lock Elementum. And here it is against the Civivi Praxis. So it's kind of right in that sweet spot, closer to being a full-size knife, admittedly, but not quite as big as some of my full-size knives. Now, I do want to throw two other knives out here. Here it is against the Hogue Counter Strike. Really love this knife. A little bit shorter, and here it is against the Hogue Compound. And as you can see, it's a little bit shorter than both the Hogues. So again, hopefully that helped you with a frame of reference. I'm going to leave those nearby here in a moment because I do want to talk to how I feel about the Microtech against those particular two. Let me go ahead and jump into this. First, we're going to go with the ergos. This is a very neutral hand position. It's very comfortable in hand. You do feel the poke of that pocket clip a little bit there, but it is not awful. It's just kind of letting you know that it's there. Not a big fan of the glass breaker. I still actually need to swap out the glass breaker on my Counter Strike with the extra hardware that they included, but I have not done so. As far as the button, it is very aggressive. It actually kind of hurts after opening and closing it a couple times. Not a ton of resistance, but you do have to overcome. And it's not here that it's uncomfortable. It's actually the entire travel that's comfortable. Meaning when I say here, not the break point, but the entire travel that's uncomfortable. What I have found though is with this one, if you don't push hard into it and you just let it catch on the fingerprint of your finger, that actually works a little bit better than when you actually try to push down deliberately to catch it. It almost kind of catches in those fingerprints easier, but even then, just those few throws between the tension and the aggressive switch, it's really quite uncomfortable, which is why I've had to switch hands. Now, as you can see, this one here has this M390 blade is black washed with a satin finish Hopefully you can see that pretty good off the light there. And it's a very beautiful aesthetic. The drop point for me is a better EDC blade shape. It's going to work better for cutting and slicing at things more so than the dagger blade. The dagger blade is going to be a very thick geometry because the dagger is splitting the difference of the material, and it has an immediate rise to go from the blade's edge to the center of the dagger. The finish on here is really good. The aluminum looks great. Again, this is secondhand. I did buy this used to check it out, and I picked these up because it is now legal where I live to carry automatic knives, so I wanted to start checking some of them out, and I've actually enjoyed quite a few of them. As far as blade play, side to side, up and down, minimal tolerances. It's just a little wiggle. Not really hearing anything side to side and up and down, just shaking it, which is going to be more aggressive than it would be you walking and stepping in the pocket, right? That's why I'm shaking, so you know what it is that I'm checking out. The button itself, a little bit of play in there, but I think that might be for dampening, or it could be to keep the switch directly off of the scale itself to kind of make it float along, as opposed to it sitting directly on there. So it's probably pushed up and lipped inside the scale there. You see it has that little bit of lip. So it's probably pushed up so that it's going into the scale this way and not directly rubbing on the body. The aluminum with the coated finish is very smooth. You have very minimal branding here. Blade Show 2020 Microtech logo. And then you have the Microtech logo here on the pocket clip for when it's in the pocket. The glass breaker is more of the ball type than it is the pointy type. So that's nice. The action on here is kind of medium. So fires well. Has good sounds. And doesn't kick out of the hand too hard. So I do like that about this. Now, what I did want to do is actually directly compare that to the actual Counter-Strike from Hogue. The Hogue has a better sound. This is more muted. It's kind of like a thud. Whereas this one has more of the clicks, and I actually like the way that that sounds. As far as the buttons are concerned, this aggressive button is too aggressive for me, whereas this little bit of jimping but the taller ramp on the Hogue actually works more comfortably for me. So I can do this like on top rocking, or I can move the thumb completely and it's comfortable either way. Whereas with the Microtech, it's very sharp to do it this way, and it is really sharp to rock and do it. Like, it actually was starting to hurt my finger to try to pull back. Overall though, I think it's a cool little knife. USA made, which I love about that. The build quality seems really good. Like, the tolerances seem very tight. Far as I know, from what I've heard, seen, and experienced, OTFs all have just that little bit of wobble here, and that tolerance is just so that it's going out with a little bit of clearance from the front of the knife. These are really nice for people that, you know, if you have arthritis in the hand, I would say the Hogue, which is a little bit more comfortable to operate with the thumb, and let me see, a little bit easier to overcome. I think the Hogue's setup's a little bit better. But if you are arthritic and you do want something, I actually would probably say the compound's a little bit better, because if you have the arthritis in the joints, you're going to have to squeeze way down, which is going to actually irritate the knuckles and the fingers, whereas the compound, you're not quite having to squeeze as much to get your hand around it. Ergonomically, the compound's better than both the other knives that I've showed you here today. And the button, because it's ramped similarly to what you see on the Counter-Strike, is not hard to overcome, and it fires very snappy. I'm letting the oil break in because this one here I picked up from Lefty, and I can tell he played with it a bunch, and it's starting to wear a little bit at the coating, so I'm letting that oil sit for a little while before I wipe it clean. Would I recommend the Microtech? I would, but I would preface it the fact that the action is not as snappy as it is on the Hogue, and I don't know if that's this one model, so that take that into consideration. This is the only sample Microtech I've handled so far. The button on it is way too aggressive for me. I think they did that because if you're working with gloves, which is going to make this entire body way too slick, it will grip that glove really well for you so that you can get that in there. But again, you'll have to kind of pinch grip and push to get that to deploy and not deploy. The other thing that I want to say as well, I know it's a 2022 blade show and I know I picked it up used, but it did fail once when firing it. I went to fire it, and I think because I kind of slipped off of the button because it was hurting my finger, I landed like in a funny spot, and it kind of like, I didn't push hard enough and it didn't fire all the way out. But it was simply just pulling it the rest of the way out, pulling it back closed and firing it open again, and it was fine, no issues. But again, I think that was because my thumb was getting so tired. Now, the price on this is $325 when I looked up the SE. I don't know if the Blade Show one was more or less, but the Ultratech SEs were running at $325 when I checked. I think it was either River's Edge Cutlery or DLTs where I checked for the SE at $325. The Hogue Compound was running at $340, giving you aluminum with a carbon fiber show side and titanium hardware. So a little bit more, but you're getting a little bit more showmanship or a little bit more premium materials on the knife, and you're getting magnet cut here versus M390. Now, I've heard people say that Hogue is going to be bringing a clip point variant of the Counter-Strike because it's done so well, but I don't know if that's going to be an all aluminum body, if it's going to be a clip point, if it'll be this thin when it actually hits, because one of the things I also hear is people think that even though ergonomically the Compound is so comfortable in hand to use for long periods with this clip point, people really don't like the way that it ends up looking. But it is really comfortable. I don't think it's an ugly knife. I think it's a cool design. It definitely feels more tactical by look, but it is super, super comfortable to hold on to and to use. I would say this is the most comfortable, and this one has a thicker blade stock than what you see here on the Microtech, so it is thinner behind the edge, and it has a taller, thinner flat grind, and it has a thinner blade stock out of the gate, and it has a better edge on it. So the Compound, which I didn't mention, is coming in at $320 or so a little bit right around the same price as the Microtech. But I really like the Hogue's firing mechanism and button a little bit better. But the button is my main complaint on here. The edge from the factory came nice. The action is fine. Overcoming the switch breakpoint is fine. The pocket clip works really well. Goes in and out of the pocket nicely. It is reversible, so it's totally ambidextrous, which is also really nice. And the coating finishes on it are really, really well done. And they have a bunch of colors. So Microtech, you can pick it up in blue, purple, I think I've seen drab green, black. So they have a bunch of colors to tickle your fancy. But I will say, at least on my version, the firing mechanism on here is just not super overwhelming. So I would probably steer you towards the Counter-Strike, even though it's a little bit more, it is a better looking knife. Hopefully Hogue will just do an all aluminum variant of it in a clip point and be competitive with that $320 price. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Thanks for tuning in and checking it out. Thanks to everyone out there that supports by leaving likes and comments. I appreciate each and every one of you. I hope all of you have a fantastic week. And until next time, peace